Congressman, right to the heart of this. Nancy Pelosi may have sort of spilled the beans. She said that the Democrats have been working on impeachment for 2 years, but what they are charging him for just happened a few months back. How can that be?
We've seen for the last 2 years that Democrats have been playing pin the tail on their favorite impeachment theory. And even the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, campaigned to his colleagues years ago that he wanted to be chairman because he thought he would be most capable to lead on an impeachment. You know, they accuse the president of abuse of power, but it is Democrats who have abused power in Congress unlike at any other time in American history.
How frustrating is it to be sitting there in Congress? You have a constitutional responsibility to present the other side, and you don't get the opportunity to adequately present the other side.
It's deeply frustrating, but the Democrats did learn lessons from the Russia investigation. You see, as we had the opportunity to point out political bias, as we had the opportunity in public to question people like Peter Strzok about the extent to which they polluted our FBI and our intelligence community with their own feelings about the president, that gave great context. It gave a full picture to the American people, and then the Democrats were unable to launch an impeachment based on their phony Russia investigation. Fast forward to Ukraine, the sort of knockoff Ukrainian sequel to the Russia hoax. They constrained evidence. They limited our ability to show the American people the truth about what was really going on, thinking that would help them. In fact, it backfired because now even members of our party who are critics of the president, even members of the Senate who are Republicans that aren't really central to the president's political identity, are recognizing how unfair this was and how damaging to our country it would be if we allowed a removal of the president based on such thin facts and based on such a flawed and partisan process.
So there are no Republicans, not one single Republican who is supporting the impeachment of the president. Yet when Richard Nixon was in the process of being impeached, virtually all the Republicans joined Democrats in doing it. So I think people see through that. Are you sensing that when you talk to constituents and when you talk even to your Democratic colleagues in Washington?
Remember just a few months ago, Governor, they said, well, even though we don't have public support for this today, we need to have public hearings because once we have public hearings, then it will animate this wave of public support for impeachment. That fizzled. That was a total nothing burger. And so now, somewhat sheepishly embarrassed by the fact that they didn't have evidence to support their claims, they're pursuing impeachment in the absence of facts.
I don't think any of us doubt that the Democrats will end up voting to send this to the Senate for trial. Even though I do expect some Democrats will bolt and won't do it. But when it gets there, there's indications. Senator Graham, Senator McConnell even talking about basically just taking it and immediately acquitting the president. Is that a good idea, or should they take it to the fight and bring witnesses out, force Adam Schiff to testify, force Jim Comey to come under oath and testify, and numerous others?
My suggestion is that immediately the impeachment should be dismissed, rejected, the president fully exonerated and acquitted. And then once that question is resolved, it is entirely appropriate for Senator Graham to lead an effort to get to the bottom of this, to call the DNC operatives who were shuttling information and planning strategy between the Democratic Party and the Ukrainian embassy, call those folks forward. Nellie Orr, who was out trying to convince corrupt Ukrainians to share dirt about the president. Let's find out the extent to which that made its way into the Department of Justice because she was married to a senior Justice Department official who was shuttling political dirt into our Intelligence Committee that ended up being presented to a FISA court. So I think that those are questions we can ask and we should ask, but let's dispense with the notion that there is anything other than a full acquittal and a full exoneration for our president ahead in the Senate.
Congressman, before I let you go, I want to talk about the Pensacola Naval Air Station shooting, a horrible tragedy. You were the first to acknowledge and even make it clear this was an act of terrorism. There's now a policy or a push that there won't be foreign nationals on our military bases who have the capacity to bring firearms, and we'll start allowing our own service people to defend themselves. What can you tell us about the aftermath of what's happened in Pensacola and how things will change?
I think that discussion has to start with the bravery of our local law enforcement, but also the sailors who were stationed at NAS Pensacola, who without guns, without firearms, ran toward the shots, ran in to help their fellow sailors, to care for the wounded, and to try to neutralize the shooter. But when I think of the patriotism of those sailors, when I think of my constituents showing such a love of country that they would wear the uniform and such a love for each other that they would put themselves in harm's way to try to end this casualty before more were harmed, it restores my faith that America's best days are still ahead. But folks who have the propensity, the likelihood for radicalization in the absence of sufficient vetting should not be allowed to come and learn how to operate U.S. warplanes and U.S. equipment on our soil. It presents too much risk.
Well, Congressman, I think we could point out that your district, the 1st District of Florida, has more veterans and active duty military than any congressional district in the entire United States. You're the right person to be leading that discussion. Thank you for joining us.
I'm proud of them.
Well, we all are, and we all should be. What a delight to have you here. Merry Christmas to you and your family, Matt. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Congressman Matt Gaetz. By the way, you can keep up with the Congressman on his social media pages at Matt Gaetz on your screen. Also, visit gaetz.house.gov for his office contacts.